You know that feeling when you're carrying something heavy, a box, a suitcase, a backpack full of stuff, and you've been carrying it so long that you've forgotten what it's like to not carry it? The weight becomes invisible. It's just part of you. Your shoulders are tense, but you don't notice. Your back aches, but you've stopped registering it. You're slower than you should be, more tired than you should be, and you assume this is just how life feels. And then one day you put it down, and the lightness is shocking. Your body feels like it's floating. You stand up straighter, you breathe deeper. Everything that felt hard a minute ago suddenly feels manageable. Not because the world changed, because the weight changed. That's what happens at $20,000 saved. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean it almost literally. There is a weight you have been carrying, a cognitive, emotional, neurological weight that lifts at approximately $20,000. And when it lifts, everything in your life gets easier. Not just your finances, your work, your relationships, your sleep, your health, your decision-making, everything. Because the weight wasn't just financial stress. It was a tax on your entire operating system. And at $20,000, you stop paying it. My name is Max, and I want to help you learn how to make your money work more for you in your life. And I emphasize in your life because this video isn't about portfolio returns or compounding math. It's about why your actual daily experience of being alive changes at $20,000 in a way that touches everything. If you want to understand not just how to build wealth, but how building wealth changes how you feel, subscribe, because that connection is what this channel is about. So here's what most people believe about money and happiness. They believe it's linear. More money, slightly more ease, a little more savings, a little less stress, a gradual proportional improvement that maps neatly to the balance. And that belief is wrong because the relationship between savings and felt ease isn't a line. It's a step function, which means there are specific thresholds where the ease jumps dramatically and long flat stretches between them where nothing feels different at all. $20,000 is the biggest step. The jump in felt ease at $20,000 is larger than the jump at $10,000, larger than the jump at $50,000, and possibly larger than any other single threshold on the entire wealth building journey. Not because $20,000 is a magical number, but because $20,000 is approximately the point where your financial situation crosses a neurological boundary setting. The boundary between chronic background stress and baseline calm. Let me explain what I mean with an analogy. Your brain has a thermostat for financial stress. Like a real thermostat, it has a set point. Below the set point, the heater kicks on. Anxiety activates, cortisol rises, your brain shifts into a vigilant, resource-conserving mode that researchers call scarcity brain. Above the set point, the heater turns off. The anxiety deactivates. Your brain shifts into a calmer, more expansive mode that allows for creativity, long-term planning, and better decision-making. For most people, given typical expenses and typical lifestyles, the thermostat's set point is at roughly 4 to 6 months of living expenses. Below that, the heater runs, sometimes low, sometimes high, but always on. Above it, the heater shuts off. $20,000 represents 4 to 6 months of essential expenses for the majority of Americans earning between $40,000 and $80,000, which means $20,000 is approximately where the thermostat clicks off. Not gradually, clicks. And when it clicks off, the warmth dissipates, and you're left with something you may not have felt in years. Cool, quiet, calm. But here's where it gets really interesting. The neurological effects of this thermostat shift are far more dramatic than most people realize. Research from Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School of Public and International Affairs found that financial stress operates on the brain similarly to chronic sleep deprivation, reducing executive function, impairing decision-making, and consuming cognitive bandwidth that would otherwise be available for productive thinking. The researchers estimated that financial scarcity reduces effective IQ by 13 to 14 points. Not permanently, situationally. But if you've been in financial scarcity for years, the situation is permanent. You've been operating at reduced cognitive capacity for so long that you don't even know what full capacity feels like. At $20,000, the scarcity lifts, and those 13 IQ points come back online. And the effects ripple through everything. Your decision-making improves. Not just financial decisions, all decisions. Research shows that cognitive load from one domain bleeds into others. Financial stress makes you worse at work decisions, relationship decisions, health decisions, even simple logistical decisions like planning your week. When the load lifts at $20,000, you suddenly have bandwidth you didn't know you were missing. Things that felt overwhelming, organizing your apartment, starting an exercise routine, having a difficult conversation, feel manageable. Not because they changed, because you have more brain to throw at them and your sleep improves. The American Psychological Association's annual stress survey consistently identifies money as the number one source of stress in American life. And stress is the number one disruptor of sleep quality. The connection is direct. Financial stress elevates cortisol. Cortisol disrupts sleep architecture. Disrupted sleep reduces next-day cognitive performance. Reduced performance increases financial mistakes. And the cycle continues. At $20,000, the cortisol drops. Sleep improves. And better sleep improves literally every other metric in your life. Energy, mood, productivity, patience, immune function. Your relationships improve. Financial stress is the leading predictor of relationship conflict. According to research from Kansas State University, it's a stronger predictor than any other variable, including communication style, personality compatibility, or even infidelity. Couples with financial buffers report significantly less conflict, higher satisfaction, and better communication. Not because money buys happiness in relationships, but because removing financial stress removes the primary source of friction. At $20,000, you stop fighting about money. Not because you agreed on a budget, because the pressure that caused the fights dissipated. And here's a dimension of this that's less obvious, but equally important. Your relationship with yourself improves. Financial stress creates a brutal inner dialogue. Why can't I figure this out? Everyone else seems fine. What's wrong with me? That self-criticism runs on a loop, powered by the same cortisol that disrupts your sleep and your focus. At $20,000, the self-criticism quiets, not because you become more confident, but because the evidence of your competence is sitting in a bank account. You did it. You built this. And the inner critic has no comeback for $20,000 in evidence. This might sound like self-help nonsense, but it's backed by research on financial self-efficacy, the belief in your ability to manage money effectively. Studies show that financial self-efficacy is one of the strongest predictors of overall life satisfaction, independent of income level. And financial self-efficacy doesn't come from reading a book. It comes from doing the thing, from building the buffer, from surviving the months where it was hard and continuing anyway. $20,000 is the receipt for your self-efficacy, and that receipt changes how you carry yourself through every other domain of your life. Now, I know you may be thinking, this sounds like you're saying money buys happiness, and I want to address that directly. I'm not saying money buys happiness, I'm saying stress reduction unlocks happiness that was already there. The happiness was always available. It was buried under cognitive load, cortisol, and chronic worry. $20,000 doesn't add joy. It removes the interference that was blocking joy. And that's a fundamentally different thing. One that doesn't require wealth, just sufficiency. And $20,000 for most people is sufficiency. Let me show you the math, because the path to this ease is closer than most people realize. At $400 per month, you reach $20,000 in about 46 months, just under 4 years. At $500 per month, it's about 36 months, 3 years. At $650 per month, roughly 28 months, 2.5 years. And if you start with $5,000 already saved, you cut 10 to 12 months off each timeline. These timelines assume you're saving, not investing, since the emergency fund should be in cash. But once the $20,000 buffer is established and the thermostat clicks off, you start investing the surplus, and that's when the math gets genuinely exciting, because you're investing from a place of calm rather than anxiety, which means you make better investment decisions. You don't panic sell during dips. You don't chase hot tips. You invest consistently and patiently because your brain is no longer in threat detection mode. The research from Dalbar shows that calm investors earn 2 to 4% more annually than anxious investors, not from better stock picking, but from better behavior. Over 30 years, that behavioral advantage can double your portfolio value compared to someone investing the same amount from a state of financial stress. $20,000 doesn't just make life feel easier. It makes your investments perform better. Because you perform better, here's a specific way to think about the math of ease. If the scarcity mindset costs you 13 IQ points and reduces your effective decision making by even 10%, and if 10% better decisions lead to just 1% better investment behavior per year, which is conservative given the Dalbar data, then crossing the $20,000 threshold and eliminating scarcity brain improves your 30-year investment outcome by roughly 25 to 35%. On a portfolio that would otherwise reach $500,000, that's $125,000 to $175,000 in additional wealth. From feeling calmer, from sleeping better, from thinking more clearly. The ease isn't a luxury, it's a financial asset. And this is the part most people miss. The person who built $20,000 through 3 to 4 years of consistent saving has done more than accumulate money. They've built a permanent set of skills that most people never develop. The ability to live below their means consistently. The ability to delay gratification across multiple time horizons. The ability to automate financial behavior so it doesn't depend on willpower. And the ability to hold a long-term vision steady during short-term difficulty. That skill set is the real asset. The $20,000 is evidence of the skill set, not the skill set itself. And once those skills exist, they don't disappear. They become the foundation for everything that follows. The investing phase, the wealth building phase, the financial independence phase. Each one rests on the platform of discipline and self-knowledge that the $20,000 journey constructed. You're probably wondering what the ease actually looks like in daily life. It's Tuesday afternoon. Your car starts making a grinding noise. Before $20,000, this would have dominated your entire week. The stress of not knowing how much it would cost. The anxiety of whether you could afford it. The cascading worry about what else might go wrong. After $20,000, you call the mechanic, get a quote for $900, schedule the repair for Friday, and go back to your afternoon. The problem still exists, but it's a logistical issue now, not an existential one. That shift from existential to logistical is the felt experience of ease. It's Thursday evening. Your partner suggests a weekend trip. Before $20,000, this triggered a rapid mental calculation. Can we afford it? What about rent next week? What if something else comes up? The calculation wasn't about the trip. It was about whether any discretionary spending was safe. After $20,000, you think, is this a trip we'd enjoy? The financial question doesn't even arise because the buffer has already answered it. That freedom, the freedom to evaluate experiences on their merit rather than their financial risk, is what ease feels like. It's Monday morning. Your boss asks you to take on a challenging project that could lead to a promotion but involves visibility and risk. Before $20,000, the fear of failure is amplified by financial precarity. If you fail publicly and it affects your standing and you lose your job, the catastrophe chain runs all the way to financial ruin. After $20,000, the chain breaks at, and I have 6 months of expenses saved. The risk recalibrates to realistic proportions. You take the project, you excel, the promotion happens, and the chain that would have kept you small was broken by a savings account. And the career effects of this ease extend far beyond individual moments. At $20,000, your relationship with work undergoes a permanent shift. You stop working from fear and start working from engagement. And the research on this distinction is striking. Psychologist Edward Dacey's self-determination theory shows that people who work from intrinsic motivation, interest, engagement, purpose, perform significantly better than people who work from extrinsic pressure, fear of consequences, financial desperation, obligation. The $20,000 buffer doesn't change your job. It changes the reason you're doing your job. And that shift from I have to I choose to produces better work, better relationships with colleagues, better career decisions, and ultimately higher lifetime earnings. The financial buffer pays for itself through the career performance it enables. Let me put some numbers on this. Employees who report lower financial stress receive higher performance ratings on average. Roughly 1/3 of a rating category higher in standard performance review systems. That might not sound like much, but in organizations that tie compensation to performance reviews, 1/3 of a rating category translates to $2,000 to $5,000 per year in bonuses and raises. Over a decade, that's $20,000 to $50,000 in additional earnings generated entirely by the cognitive and emotional benefits of having a $20,000 buffer. The buffer literally pays for itself. And the ease isn't just a feeling, it's revenue. And beyond the direct earnings impact, there's the career trajectory effect. People who work from engagement rather than fear are more likely to volunteer for stretch assignments, mentor others, propose new ideas, and develop leadership skills. These behaviors compound into promotions, title changes, and responsibility increases that are worth far more than any individual raise. The $20,000 buffer doesn't just make your current job easier. It makes your entire career trajectory steeper. Now, I have to warn you about the mistake that can delay or even prevent this ease from landing. Some people reach $20,000 and immediately convert the ease into spending. The thermostat clicks off, the anxiety fades, and the brain, newly freed from scarcity mode, goes shopping. It's a neurological rebound. You've been deprived for years. And the moment the deprivation ends, your brain tries to compensate by consuming a new gadget, a vacation, an apartment upgrade, and before you know it, the balance drops to $14,000 and the thermostat clicks back on. The anxiety returns, the ease evaporates, and you're back to carrying the weight. The fix is awareness. Know that the rebound impulse is coming. It's not a character flaw. It's a predictable neurological response to the end of deprivation. When you feel the urge to spend after hitting $20,000, recognize it for what it is, your brain recalibrating. Give it 2 to 4 weeks to settle. The impulse will fade as your brain adjusts to the new normal, and once it adjusts, you'll be able to spend intentionally rather than reactively, from calm rather than rebound. If you want to celebrate, and you should, celebrate with something that costs $100, not $2,000. A dinner, a day off, a small experience that marks the milestone without threatening it. Because the ease is worth more than anything you could buy with the money, and the ease only survives if the $20,000 does. So here's what I want you to hold on to. Everything you're carrying right now, the background anxiety, the cognitive load, the sleep disruption, the relationship tension, the career fear, has a source. And the source has a price tag. And the price tag for most people is approximately $20,000. That's not a lot of money in the grand scheme of a lifetime. It's 3 years of consistent saving. It's the difference between a life lived under chronic stress and a life lived in baseline calm. And every day you move toward it, every $400, every $500, every month of discipline, you're not just saving money. You're paying down the stress that's been taxing every part of your life. The weight has a weight. And $20,000 is what it costs to put it down. So keep going. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't just a number, it's a lighter life. And you deserve to feel what that's like.